What's up, guys? I'm Spade, and this is my review of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, directed by Sam Raimi, 2022. Now, first things first, take care of business. I want to thank y'all for tuning in to the second review that I'm doing. Please like the video, hit subscribe if you're not subscribed. Also, this is the warning right now. I think it just dropped on Disney Plus Digital, so go check out the movie. This will be a spoiler-filled review. I'm gonna talk spoilers, I'm gonna talk connections to the MCU, I'm gonna talk cameos, I'm gonna talk all that stuff. So, spoiler alert, now get out of here. If you haven't watched the movie, go watch the movie, come back after you're done, and let's get into it. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was a pretty cool movie overall. I thought some of the writing wasn't that great. I thought some of the characters and just the character development wasn't really there. I thought that visually it was really cool. I thought Sam Raimi put a lot of style into it, and I think it is one of the more like standout films of the fourth phase of the MCU so far. Some of the cameos I was a little let down with, and like the way they use them I was a little let down by, but I'll go into all that stuff closer to the end. First, I'll talk about some of the stuff that I liked about the movie, and then I'll talk about some of the stuff I think they could have improved on, or that I didn't really agree with, or I didn't like so much. And then I'll just have a discussion overall just about, you know, the movie, things surrounding the movie, and I guess the MCU. So I think my favorite element of the movie is Sam Raimi's direction. He put a lot of his own personality into this movie. There's a lot of Easter eggs to a lot of his past work, including, you know, a Bruce Campbell cameo. Is always dope seeing him in Sam Raimi's works. Visually, it was pretty impressive. The movie looked great. The CGI, again, like is a little not really the best. I don't know, I've been noticing lately in the Marvel shows and the Marvel movies that the CGI doesn't really do it for me. It looks like a video game at this point, and it would be cool to get more practical effects, especially with Sam Raimi at the helm. But I thought just like the monsters in the movie, the fight scenes, the direction, the camera movement, like the camera had a lot of personality in this movie. I think that's a huge element of Sam Raimi's direction, is the camera was active. It was moving around. Instead of zooming in, it would move in physically, which I thought was pretty cool. You know, it reminded me of like his older movies, the Evil Dead movies, you know, for example. Even though I said that the CGI like isn't that great, still visually it was cool. It was cool seeing, I think, Gargantos at the beginning of the movie, the big one-eye monster. Just seeing Doctor Strange fight him and the way he fights him is pretty cool. You know, it was a creative fight. He didn't just fly in and just bash him up. Like there was stuff to it, and I was actually surprised by the amount of, I guess, gore in the movie. In my opinion, the MCU tends to play it really safe when it comes to like violence, gore. You know, they don't really push the envelope too much. I know that they are trying to appeal to a younger crowd as well, so I was surprised the amount of violence and gore in this movie. It actually took me back a bit, but like I was pleased to see it. I think the character of Doctor Strange was done justice for the most part. I think he had a dope character arc in the film. I think he went from the guy, like they said in the film, you always got to be the one holding the knife. And, you know, he had to go from that to learning to trusting other people, and, you know, he had to grow as a character. I know it's not like the most crazy character arc you could think of, but I'm glad that it was there, because that's something that's kind of lacking in a lot of movies, is there's not a lot of character growth, or we don't see the character have to overcome something or overcome themselves, which is kind of what he has to do in this movie, and I really like that. He got a lot of really cool moments and did a lot of cool spells and did a lot of his like signature moves as well that I liked seeing. I'm always down for like dope magic stuff, superhero magic stuff, so like that was ill. I actually really dug when they went into the universe that was like completely destroyed, and Doctor Strange saw the version of himself that was kind of evil. It had the third eye, and that was really dope actually, seeing that and seeing him fight himself. That was just wicked, and it kind of mirrored how it was in the What If animated series that was on Disney Plus, so that was really cool to see, and a big Easter egg as well. And I gotta say, just lastly, probably my favorite moment of Doctor Strange is when he goes zombie mode and he was just controlling like all those demons. It was just wicked to see. That was just dope visually and just like a dope nerd moment. I don't know. I really thought that was really cool. So the other thing that I really liked was, and a big reveal in this movie, I guess, spoiler alert, is that Wanda is the villain. And I really liked how Sam Raimi used her as a villain. He almost utilized her like she was like a monster or a demon. It was dope. I really liked that. I wasn't expecting that, actually. One of my favorite moments actually was when Wanda was trapped in the mirror, or she was trapped in that reflection universe and she was trying to get out, and they were trying to cover up all the reflections. The camera's moving around. You can see her in the reflections, like trying to get out. It was very, very Sam Raimi, and it was wicked. You don't really see too much of that in modern movies, in the MCU especially. And my favorite moment is of that part when she crawls out of the mirror backwards. Like, I thought that was wicked. That was really dope, and it was like scary too. It was like The Exorcist, you know. So that was dope. That was dope. So that being said, I really like that this movie had a lot of horror elements. It actually stands out for me among all of the MCU films, to be honest. It has its own style, and it is in a lot of ways a horror movie as well as a superhero movie. I think because it blends horror and action really well, you get a lot of cool sequences and you get a lot of stuff that isn't necessarily brand new, but it's just presented in a refreshing way, in a new way, and I really appreciated that. That being said, there's tons of cool action in this movie. There's so many fights. The movie is just non-stop. It is like a ride. As soon as the action starts, it doesn't stop. Maybe there's little pauses here and there, which I said, you know, maybe the writing could have been improved a little bit, but what you get is entertaining enough that it makes up for the lulls and some of the things that don't really make any sense. And even though I think that they could have done better on the writing of their actor and character cameos, I really dug seeing John Krasinski as Reed Richards. That was really dope, and I don't know if we're gonna get him later on in the MCU as Reed Richards, but that would be cool. And I also thought it was really dope seeing Patrick Stewart back as Professor X, though this time it was the animated version of Professor X, I'm guessing. You got Lashana Lynch as Captain Marvel, and then it was cool to see Haley Atwell take up the role of Captain Carter. Again, you know, kind of mirroring the What If animated universe or animated show over on Disney Plus. That was pretty dope to see. So it was cool seeing all those cameos, but I'm gonna get into it. I think they could have done a lot more with those characters. So now let's get into the stuff that I didn't like, or maybe I thought they could have improved on. All right, so like I was saying, I thought that the characters and the cameos in this movie were really dope, but what kind of disappointed me is that they don't really have implications for these characters or these different versions of these characters outside of this movie, and they don't delve into, I guess, the laws of the multiverse itself and what this means going forward in the MCU. So we got a new character in this movie, America Chavez, who's a new character in the comics, or a newer character in the comics, I think. And her powers is she can traverse the multiverse. So she can create portals and she can go to different universes. So now she doesn't know at first how to control her powers. So she's just creating these portals at random. And then she learns to control them in the end. The big thing that I didn't really like about this was there was no character growth. Her whole growth was believe in yourself, you know? And the introduction of her powers was that she was scared that she was going to get stung by a bee, so she formed a portal that pulled her parents into another universe. Like, they don't explain why she has this power, how she has this power, why did it activate only when this bee came to sting her. Like, I didn't understand. And they don't explain really where she's from or how she got into contact with that other universe's Doctor Strange. She doesn't talk about herself really, and there's no arc for her. She's just kind of there. She's like an item in the movie. They could have replaced her with, I don't know, like a magic wand or something, and it would have been the same. At the end of the movie, all she has to do is, you know, believe in herself, and then she becomes, you know, the most powerful person and beats up Wanda, and just like I wasn't buying that part of the movie, and it was very weak writing on their behalf. So I don't know, take that for what it is. Maybe you'll enjoy the character. That was just my personal taste, is I thought that the writing could have been a lot better. The actress did a great job. Xochitl Gomez, she did a great, I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name properly, but she did a good job. She just wasn't given a lot to work with. I personally wanted to know more about her character. Who is she? What drives her? What does she want, really? You know, at the end of the movie, she's just with Doctor Strange in Carmitage at the end of the movie, and I'm thinking, doesn't this girl, isn't she trying to go, you know, save her parents, harness her power? Why is she just kind of like isolated now on a mountain? It doesn't make sense to me, right? The writing doesn't make sense to me. The same thing with Wanda, you know, her character motivation doesn't make sense at all, that she would do what she's doing and, you know, go totally, you know, to the dark side, let's say, just to be with a couple of kids that she made up. I think that if they had the power to traverse the multiverse, Doctor Strange and even her, they would have thought of, you know, why don't you just go to a universe where you died and your kids need you, and your kids exist and they need you, because obviously in this universe her children don't even exist. Now in another universe she has kids. So like I don't understand. Like, they didn't really set up the rules for the multiverse either, or if there are rules for characters, it's kind of just, okay, here's the multiverse and boom, anything is possible. Which if that's gonna be how it is, that allows for like a lot of stuff, but there has to be some kind of rule, some kind of groundedness, because if not, it's just a free-for-all. Now, before I go on and on about the other characters, I'm going to say about the rules and the groundedness, about the stakes of this movie, is that, you know, now that they've saved the entire multiverse, what is there left to do for Marvel? You know what I'm saying? Like, they kind of have to save all of reality next or something. I don't know, right? They push the envelope really far, but the movie itself doesn't take the situation with the amount of gravity that I think is needed for what's happening, you know, because literally the entire multiverse becomes at risk in this movie. And I'm thinking, you know, you don't call any other Avengers, you don't call any other heroes, you know, there's other cosmic forces that have been introduced already in the Marvel universe, and they're not involved. So I just think there's a lot of weak writing going on, and maybe they don't know where they want to go next, so they're kind of taking shots in the dark now. I'm not too sure. That's just how I feel personally when I see it. So going back, talking about more of the characters, the Illuminati, which was a big reveal in this movie, which I know a lot of big Marvel fans were waiting for, I think they were kind of a letdown as well. I thought this Illuminati was going to be like the multiverse Illuminati, if that makes sense. You know, like maybe they made the decisions on a multiversal scale, but it ended up being that these guys are just kind of the equivalent of the Avengers, just in another universe. Which I think is cool, but I don't know if that idea is now wasted on this, because the Illuminati in the comics is actually a pretty dope organization. Although, you know, with Iron Man dead, I don't think they can really do that now, but I just think maybe it could have been done better and put to more use with wider implications to the Marvel universe as a whole. Oh, and just to finish up about Wanda, at the end, she just realizes that she's doing wrong and seemingly kills herself. I don't think she's dead. If you don't see a body, they ain't dead. You know, that's the movie rules, the comic book rules, I guess. I mean, comic book rules, even if they're dead, they're not dead. So who knows, right? But I don't know, I thought it was kind of wacky and out there, but you know, the style and the action and the pacing and just the overall ride of the movie, it made up for all the crappy parts for me. Not to say that it's a 10 out of 10 film, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But you know, the positives definitely outweigh the negatives, though I feel, you know, you gotta address the negatives, right? All right, so In conclusion, I think that Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness had a lot of style, a lot of personality, some really cool Doctor Strange moments, a good character arc for Doctor Strange, and was just a lot of fun in general. Now, I do think that the writing could have been a lot better, the characters could have been a lot better written, better executed. There could have been a lot more implications to the MCU on a larger scale, and a lot of stuff just kind of didn't make sense or was a little too wacky for my liking. All that being said, I'll give Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness 6.5 out of 10. So what did you think? Let's talk about it in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to my channel for more dope shit, and let's do a further discussion of the movie and the MCU going forward. All right, so one little gripe that's just kind of like a nerd point for me is that I like when Doctor Strange does his spells and stuff and he like calls out the name of the spell as he does it. I just think, I don't know, I think that would be dope to see more of that in the movie. I don't think he does that enough. You know, when he does the bands of Sidorak, I think that's dope when he does that, and they need that in the movie, just for me. Okay, so yeah, man, the MCU Phase 4. I don't know. It's okay. To be honest, it's kind of lackluster. Spider-Man 3 is probably my favorite out of the whole Phase 4 that they did. The Disney Plus shows, man, they're kind of lacking. It's kind of whack that you have to know what happened in the WandaVision show to truly appreciate this movie. I think that's kind of doing the fans a bit of a disservice, especially to people who don't subscribe to Disney Plus. They're not really gonna know what's going on, and Wanda's motives aren't gonna make any sense in this movie to them. So I don't know, it's just that choice was really weird to me. I think it really stems from them having to switch gears during the big thing that happened, you know, a couple years back. And they probably had to make some lower budget stuff. Maybe these MCU shows were supposed to be movies, but they decided to make them episodic instead. I'm not really sure, to be honest. It just seems weird, and I hope that going forward there isn't too much of that. Maybe these MCU shows can be more offshoots and not so integral to the plots of main movies. And this Phase 4 is feeling kind of like directionless. I don't know. I don't know what we're really gearing up for. I'm thinking it's going to be Kang the Conqueror. You let me know your theories. I think that, again, Loki, the MCU, the show, the Disney Plus show, really points towards that Kang the Conqueror is coming, and that the multiverse was kind of recreated when the female Loki, when she killed the one above all, I think his name was. There was a multiverse before, presumably. Then Kang, or the one above all, or whatever you want to call him, came along, made one timeline, and now, because of the events of Loki, they tore the timeline apart, and now the multiverse exists again. So I thought that this movie, this Doctor Strange movie, was going to deal with, okay, what is the multiverse, you know, exactly? What are the rules for the multiverse? What are some of the dimensions that it leads to, and what are the implications, or who are the bad guys that are coming out of here, or, you know, what's happening next? What's the next step for our heroes in the MCU? I really didn't get that out of any of these movies in Phase 4. I guess they're still tying up the events of Infinity War and Endgame. I'm not sure, you know? I just feel like we should be moved on at this point, and we should be pointing in the direction of the next big bad or the next big threat to the universe, or whatever the case is. Now, the end credits scene also kind of threw me for a loop for a second. I had to like do a little Googling and be like, okay, who the hell was that? And so I guess that, I forget her name, but she is one of Doctor Strange's love interests, and she is a niece of Dormammu, who's the bad guy from Doctor Strange 1 and lives in that negative universe, whatever. And when they get together, I think it's a precursor to Secret Wars, which is something that I've been looking forward to for a long time, and I think could be the catalyst to like resetting the MCU, which is a pretty interesting prospect, I think. Speaking of resetting the MCU, I feel like they blew through a lot of the stories that they could have spent a little bit more time on. Something like Civil War comes to mind. And just not having their entire pantheon of characters has really hindered them as a studio in making these movies to the fullest extent. I know that, the audience isn't really aware of it, but characters like the Hulk, who's partially owned by Universal, Spider-Man, who's owned by Sony, Spider-Man's villains, who are all owned by Sony, and his whole rogues gallery. It's hard to get these characters into MCU properties, and a lot of times we got to work around it. Even Fantastic Four, X-Men, all these guys were owned by Fox before. Now with this whole Disney-Fox merger, and in this movie, it goes to show with John Krasinski playing Reed Richards, we are probably going to get Fantastic Four, Patrick Stewart as Professor Xavier. We are going to get the X-Men coming back, whether they call it the X-Men or not, we got to see, but that's a whole other debate for a whole other place. One thing I do got to say about Professor X as well, and it's, his fight with Wanda in the astral plane, like I thought that was really dope how they depicted that, but I think Professor X ain't going to be taken out that easy by Wanda like that. She's a powerful being, no doubt, but Professor X, man, he went one-on-one with the Phoenix and the Shadow King and all these dudes, so you gotta give my dude his respect, you know what I mean? Put some respect on his name, you know what I'm saying? I hope John Krasinski decides to come back and play Reed Richards, and I'm also waiting to see my dude Dr. Doom make his debut in the MCU, so it's dope and it's exciting to finally get characters like the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, and to be able to see these characters in the MCU and come in and interact with all the other characters we already got, and I'm really psyched to see that. Last thing I want to say is that I hope this opens the door for more creative directors like Sam Raimi to take the helm of MCU projects and put their own distinct personality to it and give us movies with a lot of style and cool visual appeal. So again, thank you guys for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed this review. I'm gonna put links to all my stuff in the description of the video. If you like hip-hop music, that's something I do as well. I make beats, I rap, I do all kind of stuff. So check that out if you like it. Please remember to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you're not subscribed, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.